So Tony, I'll do introductions for us and then I'll hand it off to you. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay. So I'm just looking at my screen, so I'll see how that order works. So with us from the town of Colony, Supervisor Mahan, representing State Parks, Elaine Balchinian, morning. Steve Rice, citizen member from Union College. Nancy Pearson, citizen member. Supervisor Peter Barber, the town of Gilliland. Tony Luisi, acting director of Region 4 and our board chair. Jessica Otney Mahar with the Nature Conservancy. Brad Glass with the City of Albany. Good morning, Brad. Don, I added you so you can keep an eye on things too. Keep an eye on me.
Thank you. I will.
I know. And I think that's it. So we're waiting for, so John Bruss may come back in on his phone and Mike McLaughlin may pop in from the county. So with that, Tony, I'll turn the agenda over to you and I will share my screen.
Sure. So hopefully everyone received the board packet that Patty circulated. Our first order of business is to consider the minutes from the March 18th meeting. Does anyone have any comments on those minutes? Hearing none. Chris, do we need a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes, please.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from March 18th?
I approve. Steve Rice.
Steve.
I'll second.
Nancy.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next agenda item, we have an opportunity for comments from the public. Do we have any attendees who wish to provide a comment?
Don Allard from the Friends of the Pine Bush Community. Don, do you have anything you want to say? You don't have to. No? Okay.
Okay, going once, going twice. We are moving at a brisk speed through this agenda. So let's move on to reports. So I do not have a report for today. If any other board members have a report, we would love to hear from you.
This foremost, we remind ourselves to keep this foremost in our actions and our communications. In 2020, with COVID limiting our person-to-person events, the board developed monthly social hours via Zoom and webinars so friends could engage and participate. This past month, a book club session discussed the book, A World of Wonder. Next week is a Tibetan flag workshop. Friends have been volunteering every other month at work sessions at the Northeast Regional Food Bank. The next work session is June 22nd from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Tabling is slowly resuming with an event scheduled at Gilderland's National Night Out on August 3rd at Towasentha Park. The 20-mile challenge is gathering in popularity. This challenge encourages the public to hike all 12 trails within the preserve and enjoy the full range of landscapes, flora, and fauna. Brochures are added to each of the trailhead map boxes. The Friends Facebook page, I'm happy to report, is operational. And this will allow easier outreach and donations. The Traveling Pine Bush photo exhibit, which includes selections from several different years, is looking for new venues. Our last one being in January at the Uncommon Grounds on Western Avenue. Recent staff requests include equipment to enhance remote learning for school groups and supplies for a trail cleanup by an outside group from Wildwoods. Friends, continue to support the monthly science lectures, albeit by webinar at this point. And more long-term, friends provide a mechanism with which to partner with the Nature Conservancy so the preserve can purchase desired tracts of land and grow to its optimum size. So again, thank you for having us participate in your board meeting today.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Don.
Don.
So I guess we can go back to reports, Tony.
Okay. I think we were at this asking if there are any other reports from any other board members.
Can I just say something, Tony? It's Steve
Of course.
Rice.
Sure.
I just wanted to thank Chris and Neil and Lisa for the tour of the Pine Bush last week. It was, or a couple of weeks ago. It was really fantastic to see everything that's going on out there firsthand and to get back outside with everybody. So I just wanted to thank them for that. It was as they always are. It was a fantastic morning.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, we had great weather. We had good participation. I'm glad we had so many from the board and the technical committee show up. It was good. It actually gets me outside even. How about that?
Yeah,
And Steve could even see that I could remember some of my botany. I could still ID some plants.
I want to
Thanks,
second
Steve.
that too. It was a great day. Steve, everything Steve said was spot on.
Yeah, Neil did a great job leading the group, talking about the habitat stuff that we actually, is there anything else I can move into my report? That's what I was going to talk about a little bit too.
Hey, I just want to say it's fun to be partnering with the Pine Bush and Parks on the new CDTA nature bus.
Oh yeah, TNC's doing that. We actually are not part of that at this point.
Oh, I thought I saw you on there.
No,
Oh,
we were part of the original planning.
oh, maybe that's where I saw it.
That's why we were part of the original planning with the Mohawk Hudson Land Conservancy, TNC, the county, and it just came down to logistics. So that bus, the big buses don't stop at the Pine Bush. They don't come to the Pine Bush. So they would have to take the Star, the little shuttle bus. And the only way we could have that, we could reach the community that we're trying to reach is to hand out vouchers. But if you hand out vouchers, it doesn't limit people to come just to the Pine Bush. So they could go to the mall, they could go shopping, they could go to Troy. So CDTA basically said it's probably not in your best interest at this point. So they said, why don't we see how this goes? And my hope is that if it takes off, then we'll be able to we'll jump on the bandwagon too. It got great press too.
Yeah, it got great press. It didn't get great ridership the first week it started, but we're doing outreach to more community organizations and program, like trying to hook up with neighborhood organizations to actually develop a program for their kids or take the bus up that way. So it's a great. I hope it's successful. It's something we're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a little while to get the word out, and I hope it's successful too. I mean, I think it's a great idea. So we'll see what happens.
I think once the school year is out, the ridership numbers will increase.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, because Five Rivers is part of it too.
Yeah.
Right.
We're like the black sheep out. No Pine Bush. So I'll jump into my report. Just going back to that tour we did, Neil did a great job explaining. We got to see all kinds of habitat restoration and management that's been going on that whole yellow loop. We could see habitat work over the past couple of years, recent fire, lots of stuff going on. And actually, he's leading a group today, the CEO of Nature Serve, which is the overarching organization that manages all the natural heritage programs across the country. He's stopping here for a visit. And Neil is going to take him on that same tour. So he's going to be able to see that. And there's going to be staff from the Heritage Program too. Speaking of that Yellow Trail, I've actually been out on it quite a bit. We had Senator Hinchy here at the end of May. and she got to see a lot of Carner blue butterflies and lots of lupin in bloom. So that was good. We've been doing a lot of virtual programs. That continues. We had we reached nearly 600 students in the last quarter, all virtual programming with our education staff. So that's Jackie, that's India, that's Sarah, all standing there in front of a tripod with an iPad on it, talking to it, but still as engaged as ever. What else have we got going on? I'd ask you to take a look at the update. There's a lot of stuff in there. Some of the things that are interesting, we had our virtual, it's actually a hybrid Lupin Fest this year. A lot of virtual activities, and it went over a 3-week period. We're still trying to figure out what kind of traffic we got as far as the internet goes, but all the public programs, they booked well in advance. The trail gating was a big success. We had like 180 people that we reached through that. It's good. Just taking a look in the last quarter, not even March through May. So we had 16,000 visits on our website, and over half of them were mobile users, which is no surprise, but that's the kind of data I think is interesting. That's what Wendy pulled together for us. And going into conservation science, our 3 main science staff, Neil, Steve, and Dylan, all presented at the at the Northeast Natural History Conference. And Neil's presentation that he gave there is what you're going to hear today under the presentations. I titled it Adaptive Management, 30 Years of Prescribed Fire. His title was much longer and much more scientific. So you'll enjoy that presentation. And then going also into, in the science section, there's a whole section about the whippoorwill and the towhee and the work that we're doing with radio tags and GPS tags and the MODIS tower. And we heard all about that on that tour. So there's more detail in the update. Take a look at that. And stewardship continues. We've restored 15 acres in the last quarter. We've done a lot of interseeding. We've seeded with lupin after burning. And Tyler and his crew and the support from the DEC Rangers and other partners like Fish and Wildlife and National Park Service, we've been able to burn 217 acres since March, which is pretty good. It's more than pretty good, it's excellent, including 150-acre block in basically the 6-mile waterworks area, Rensselaer Lake area, right by the interchange with all the major highways. So we got lots and lots of phone calls. None of them necessarily negative, but it was very visible. And I'm sure the supervisors on this call probably got phone calls too in their office. And you can always send those right to us. And then finally, the annual board evaluation is in your board packet. That's a requirement that has to be done on an annual basis and submitted to the authority's budget office. I submitted that to the ABO last week. And then finally, reopening. So the governor had a big press announcement on Tuesday that everything's relaxed now, sort of. So with caveats. So we're basically in a wait and see mode. I'm in touch with Tony, and we're going to kind of watch and see what happens, how the agencies do. Elaine, you're probably in the same boat. We're going to hear, I would assume the agencies are going to hear from the chamber. You're going to get some kind of a memo that says, I'm hoping, with some specific language of what it means for the agencies and authorities, and then we'll move in that realm. And my hope is we have that by the 1st of July. So patiently, but good progress. And that's it. Oh, just finally, the technical committee and project review. Neil, there's nothing to report on, so I told him I would just say that we haven't had a meeting. We had the tour, and it looks like we may actually have a meeting in the next 2 weeks. So that's all I had. Is any questions for me?
Yeah, Chris, I have a question.
Yeah.
We've been experiencing a lot of public high use at a variety of state lands throughout the region and the state last year and continuing this spring. How's everything going with the reopening of the Discovery Center with limited hours, and what type of public use are you seeing on the trails? And do you have any concerns with the numbers?
No, the public, I don't have any concern with the numbers of the trail users. We're getting lots of recreational use, mostly people just walking, hiking, and running. fair amount of mountain biking. There were horses earlier in the season because the Pine Bush isn't muddy in the spring. But I wouldn't say it's a problem. It's a good thing. I think I've said to some people before, I look out the window at the trailhead behind the Discovery Center, and the number of people that walk up to that trailhead and look at the kiosk with keen interest just tells me that they've never been here before. And a lot of people are doing that. So there's lots and lots of new people that are coming from all walks of life. The Discovery Center has maintained the hours that we set at the end of August. So that's Thursday through Sunday, limited hours, Thursday, Friday are 9 to 4. I'm sorry, 9 to 12, 1 to 4. We close for an hour to clean and disinfect. So 9 to 4 totally on Thursday and Friday. Saturday and Sunday are 10 to 4. We have a capacity of 20. We've only gotten close a few times. And I expect that to change with schools coming out, or school being coming to an end. So my hope is we'll be able to reopen the Discovery Center back to normal based on the governor's report. But again, we'll wait patiently and see how the agencies do that.
So Chris, I'll forward you the information that we got through Parks. That was pretty clear. We are no longer doing enhanced cleaning, and we've got new signage that we're going to put up that says "No vax, wear a mask."
Okay.
It's pretty simple, and we are at 100% capacity. And like Tony, we're experiencing really off the charts attendance. Like June 5th at Grafton Lake State Park exceeded the 4th of July in 2019.
Wow. Okay. Yep. That's a lot.
But
Okay.
I'll send you the internal memo on how we're doing it. The annoying thing is that we are still being asked to wear masks. All staff must wear masks inside, like the same deal. Like unless you're 6 feet apart or at your desk or whatever, you got to wear a mask.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll just share that DEC has not yet updated any of its policies or guidance to reflect the updates from the past week. So we are still under the same protocols with respect to masks and social distancing and capacity limitations as we've been for the past 12 months. But like you said, Chris, I'm hoping that we'll have further guidance over the next 2 weeks.
I'm curious, since we're on this call, Supervisors Mahan and Barber, have you made changes within your municipalities and in town halls? You're both back open for public, but have any of the things been relaxed?
Well, we still, in Colony, we are requesting that people come in that are not vaccinated, that they wear masks, but everyone that's vaccinated they can be in the offices without masks. We have opened up our meetings to the public. We did that a while ago. We started with a limited number and 6 feet apart and masks, and that's been relaxed. We can have normal seating and no mask if you're vaccinated. So we have relaxed as much as we could, following whatever orders were coming down, from the state. So we're in a better position now. Most of our people are vaccinated. Our EMS department has been part of that process, along with the county and health department and Sheriff Apple. So that's where we're at here in town.
Okay.
Yeah, Chris, real quick, here in Gilliland, we pretty much reopened. Same idea. We're asking people to not vaccinated to wear a mask, but we're not looking for any sort of proof of vaccination or anything like that. It's an honesty policy. We are not, however, having our town zoning and planning board meetings in person yet. We're still taking advantage of the governor's emergency order, which I think runs until sometime around July 4th, to still do virtual meetings. our plan is, once we do that, is to, again, fully vaccinated people, no masks, unvaccinated, wear a mask. We're not going to have 6-foot separations, but we're also going to continue to offer the virtual option for people who are uncomfortable with it. One thing we do differently, maybe slightly here, is that we're pretty much all fully vaccinated here, but if somebody comes in who's wearing a mask, we don't ask why. We respect that, and we ask our town employees to put a mask on at the same time.
Okay.
Again, lots of people can be wearing masks, not just simply because they're not vaccinated, but they have other health reasons and concerns about breakthrough cases and whatnot. So we want to make sure we fully support people's choice to wear a mask.
Yep. Brad, I'll ask you the same question. Have there been changes in the city?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the recent announcement yesterday, people who are vaccinated no longer have to wear masks within city buildings, but the same choice applies to everyone else. And, we're being respectful of everyone's decision. And we're slowly but surely getting back to normal.
Okay, that's good. So I'm going to ask one final question, then I'll move on. Because I've spent, at least the last 16 months watching webinars and lots of things that are related to this. And certainly the changes that have come along as the vaccinations have been rolled out. Are the towns are you asking for proof from your employees whether they're vaccinated or not?
No, not in Colony.
Okay.
We're not asking for any proof, but we do have an idea of people who may not be vaccinated, but we're again not looking for any proof.
Okay. I'm just curious how the state's going to approach that, because you can ask for proof, of course. However, everybody's taking a different approach. Good. That's very helpful. Thank you. I'll stop there, Tony, and then we can go to financial report.
Okay. Yeah, great. I think that brings us to Lisa. Do you want to take us away?
Good morning, everybody.
I'll get my standby. Sorry. There we go.
Okay. It's a very, very kind of a simple 1 month snapshot of our financials. Everything is very close to budget. We tend not to spend a lot of money in April because we do our spending in April. So I'll go through the statement of financial activities first. Dues and contributions, minimal on budget. You'll see this change quarterly with our Trustco donations. Government grants is a little bit under, and that's due to just conservative spending. And as you'll see down in expenses, it's the same. Revenues came in at 97% and expenses 98%. Mitigation fees are a little bit above budget, and this is a payment for our KBB mitigation that we get. We're getting every year. We didn't receive it for a while, so I think this will be part of our regular budget going forward. Lease revenue is on budget for the year. Other revenue is slightly higher, and this is great news due to increased merchandise and clothing sales because our Discovery Center is open. So total revenues came in at 97% of budget through the month of April. Expenses, you'll see all these categories between 90% and 97, 99% of budget. They're very close. Again, it's just 1 month. Personnel and fringe are on budget. This is just the slight differences due to benefit payments. Travel and training. This is very close to budget, very minimal, or 65 versus 500. Contractual, very close to budget again. And this will be DC projects and stewardship projects as we go out throughout the year mostly. Communications is on budget. Occupancy is on budget, a little bit under. This is our utility function and repairs line item. Supplies and equipment are on budget, and other expenses are on budget, very close. The other expenses are such things as our insurance, our dues and fees, our subscriptions, and our fees for payroll. So we came in at 97% for revenue, 98% for expenses, giving us an operating surplus of $4,400. And then below that, you'll see a depreciation expense, which is not a cash operating expense. for the year. And on the third report, I'll include the net investments, which you'll see are 167,994. So you'll see the above line, the operating cash flow surplus is really how we report, how we use our money and how we're functioning on the financial basis. So any questions on that? All right. Okay. Moving on to the balance sheet, our cash and cash equivalents decreased $181,000. This is due to a delay in DEC reimbursement for last year. On a positive note, we received $671,000 in May and June, which will bring us to our next line item, grants receivable. This increased $240,000, decreased May and June by $671,000 due to the payment from DEC. So we're on a great trajectory there. Accounts receivable increased $1,000. This is just money due for our telecom from TNC. We share that. Inventory remained the same. Prepaid expenses decreased $54,000. This is due to the timing of year-end expenses for March and our current expenses for April that were expensed this year. Investments, great news on that too. We had a gain of $168,000. This is just due to a positive performance in all four funds, and we hope it stays that way. Capital assets decreased $23,000. This is just our monthly depreciation expense. Land remained the same. And deferred outflows for New York retirement, this remained the same. You'll see this change in November when we will make our cash payment to the New York State retirement system and record our GASB 68 and 71 reporting. Liabilities, slight increase, $1,000. This is just due to accrued expenses for such things as FSA, paid family leave, and sales tax. Deferred revenue remained the same. New York State pension liability remained the same. Again, as above with the deferred outflows, you'll see this change in November with our GASB reports. OPEB liability remained the same. And this will change when we run our Milliman actuarially report for GASB 75, which is our other post-employment benefits. You'll see that change in January. So total liabilities increased $1,000. Net assets invested in capital assets decreased $23,000. This again is just due to depreciation. Our reserved assets decreased $9,000. And this was due to the $9,000 colony project of last year that was paid. Unreserved increased $181,000, giving us an increase in total net assets of $149,000. And that is made up of our gain, operating gain of $4,400, $168,000 investment gain, and depreciation expense of $23,000. Any questions on that? Okay. So good news all around. Onto the investment report. We had positive performance in all four funds. The reserve fund increased $33,000. The Discovery Center endowment increased $3,800. The endowment increased $123,000, and the OPEB fund that we set up increased $7,400, giving us a total gain of $168,000. Any questions on that? Thank you, guys.
Okay. Lisa, do you want to talk about the budget impact statement?
Sure. So what was it, in February, Chris, or March, we received correspondence from OSC that we will are required to fill out this quarterly report for 21 and 22 moving forward. And this is our Paris report. So this ties directly into our numbers, which includes OPEB. It includes our non-cash expenses and our investments. And we will fill this out quarterly if we have any budget changes. So for example, last year, we did not hire seasonal employees. So if we were required to do this last year, we would have filled out our salary and compensation line would have changed. So we would have expected a change in this. Or if we receive, I can foresee us filling this out when we put a new budget in front of you, if we get our federal grant, which ranges between 125,000 and 150 for fire. That would be a change where we would fill this out quarterly and upload this to OSC. So we will upload this quarterly moving forward, fill out any significant changes on this, and do the explanation of changes on the right side of this report. And this ties directly into the Paris reporting and our budget. So if we have any changes, we will have it board approved and uploaded quarterly. Just a new requirement.
Yeah, so the comptroller's office reached out to us in February. About 10 years ago, they initially reached out to us and said we had to comply with part 201. There's two sections of state regs that the controller has that govern public authorities and their reporting requirements. I think there's parts 201 and parts 203. We weren't subject to 203 until this year. So this is basically a reflection of that. So you'll see this at every quarterly report. Thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Lisa. So action items, we have, I believe, 3 that we'll need to go through. So the first one is our consideration of this real property report. Last June, we acquired this 4-acre parcel and we did not dispose of any other property during the year. Are there any questions, or Chris, is there anything that warrants discussion regarding this one transaction?
Nope, this is a requirement. This is a public authority requirement. So if you acquire or dispose of any property, you have to report it. And then you actually have to post this on your website, and then you upload it through the Paris reporting system.
Okay, and we need a motion for this resolution. So I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
All in
Elaine?
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, action item B, and this has 4 separate documents under it. The first one is our assessment of internal controls. And Chris, did anything change with respect to internal controls this past year, or for the 21 or the 2021 year as opposed to the prior year?
No, they stayed the same.
Are there any questions or comments from the board regarding this assessment of internal controls?
Actually, I'll scroll down through them, Tony.
Yeah.
So that's just so we did not have any.
Okay.
And there's a copy in the policy.
All right. Then the next document under this proposed resolution is our prompt payment policy. And Chris, were there any changes to that policy?
No, this basically recognizes that if we get an invoice, we pay it within 30 days if it's accurate. And we have done that.
Are there any other comments or questions on that from the board? Okay, the third document, the procurement report for the year. And that's several pages.
Yes, let's thank Lisa for that.
Yes,
Every
thank you,
expense
Lisa.
over $5,000 over the year is input in this.
My only question, what are the services that Caro Real Estate provides for facilities management for $23,000?
So they're our property manager. So they ensure everything is functioning for us. We have an individual that comes on site on a daily basis during the week, or if we have a problem on the weekends, make sure that simple things, are there soap in the dispensers in the restrooms? Do the sanitizing, stations work? Is there something wrong with the sidewalk? If there's light bulbs out, they replace them. if there's, they're basically general maintenance and oversight for the year.
And is that billed hourly or is that a flat rate or something else?
It's a flat rate. It was based on competitive bid.
Mhm.
They've worked with us for a number of years. They've consistently come in lower than others. And we're fortunate because the individual who is the on-site property manager, will help with anything. And he's good even with exhibits in the Discovery Center. They paint for us. They basically do anything that you can think of that's like general.
Are there any other questions on the procurement report? Okay. And the fourth document. Let's see. The Paris annual report.
It's kind of hard to see.
And is there anything in this that was not already covered by Lisa?
No. This is the final for fiscal year. This is what you would have seen at the end of March, and it ties directly into our audit, doesn't it, Lisa?
Yes, this is what you'll see exactly on our final audit.
Yeah. And this is one of the four. There's multiple reports that go to Paris, but there's the overarching ones, and this is one of the larger overarching ones. This is the annual report, and this is the financial section of that.
And it's a little bit different format because this is an OSC format than our audit format. But it ties directly in, if you look at the last page, our change in net assets.
Right here.
2272, our beginning assets of last year, and then our ending net assets. This will tie all into the audit that Frank will review and that you received on the final audit. All these numbers tie in directly to that. They're just categorized a little bit differently because it's an OSC report.
Unless there are any other questions, can we have a motion to approve these four documents?
I'll make a motion.
Nancy,
I'll second.
hold a second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. And I believe that brings us to the last action item, which is consideration of a multi-year contract with Otis Elevator. Just from looking at it, it appears that it will be $225 per month for elevator maintenance services. And the term will commence, or perhaps will be, if approved, will be effective as of June 1st, 2021, and will run for 3 years. Chris, do we have a current contract with Otis, and is this basically a new contract for the same service, or are we doing something new here?
This is new. The company that we used to work with is no longer in the area, and most of the employees that worked for Bay Elevator now work for Otis. So we asked for proposals. We got 2 proposals. This one basically met the criteria more clearly. And we haven't started it yet. So their service agreement has it starting June 1st, but it had to wait for this meeting to be approved. So it'll start after this meeting, or whenever I sign it, probably today or tomorrow.
Okay.
Pending approval.
And how does the price compare to what you've been paying historically for other vendors?
It's about the same thing. I think Bay Elevator a couple of years ago was like $180 a month. They're basically the same. The other company was lower, but didn't have good references, and it just didn't. And again, the folks that worked for Bay are now employed by Otis, and they have worked on, these individuals have actually worked on the elevator in the Discovery Center when it was still owned by SEFCU.
Mm-hmm. Are there any questions from the board on this proposed contract? Can we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion.
A second.
Chris. Who's the second? Pete,
Tony.
Steve? Tony?
Steve can have it if he wants it.
Okay, we'll give it to Steve. We're sharing here.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, thank you. And I believe that concludes our resolutions for this meeting and brings us to presentations. So Chris, I'll kick it to you.
Okay. Where am I? Is Frank with us?
Yeah, Chris, I'm
There
here.
you
Do you
are.
want me, do you want me to share my screen? I have the reports.
Yeah, can you do that?
I'm gonna try.
We have it set up so you can share. I was trying to check to see if you could share or not, and then the thing that was blocking your video.
How's that? Everybody can see the report?
Yeah, just
Yes.
make it a little bigger.
Oh, sure. How's that?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Frank Ferrucci, partner at Wojcicki and Company, and overall responsibility on your audit, which was conducted for the year ended March 31st, 2021. I have 3 reports here that I will briefly walk through and give you the highlights on. We presented to the audit committee last Friday on the 11th in a more detailed presentation. These are the byproducts of the audit and in that report, which was issued last Friday. The first report that I have here is a required audit communication report to the board of directors that summarizes our significant audit findings for the year. And here on page 1, it's important for the board to understand and know that management is ultimately responsible for the selection and use of the appropriate accounting policies, which are described in note A to the financial statements. There were no new accounting policies adopted, and the application of existing policies was not changed during the audit period. And all significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper period. You do have accounting estimates that are an integral part of the financial statements. And the 3 most significant estimates to the commission are the fair value of investments, which are based on quoted market prices in active markets. And then you also have 2 very significant estimates related to your funded status of the pension plan and the estimate of the other post-employment benefit obligation. The pension plan and the OPEB obligation are derived from actuarial assumptions and methods. But overall, these 3 estimates, we evaluated the key factors and assumptions, noting that they were all reasonable in relation to the financial statements as a whole for the year ended March 31st, 2021. We had pleased to report that we had no difficulties in dealing with management in performing and completing our audit, nor did we have any disagreements that would affect financial accounting and or reporting. We also had no corrected or uncorrected misstatements. Corrected meaning we actually would have adjusted the financial statements provided by Lisa. Uncorrected would be a immaterial amount that would be required to be reported, but still a misstatement. So very pleased to report neither corrected nor uncorrected during the year. Management provided us with a representation letter, which states that they responded truthfully to our inquiries and provided us with all necessary information in order for us to issue our audit report. And that is a required letter in order for us to issue and sign the financial statements, which was dated June 11th, which is also the date of our audit report. Sometimes management may consult with other accountants, which would be similar to obtaining a second opinion. To our knowledge, there were no consultations, but from the board's perspective, you should understand that if that were to happen, that accountant or CPA is required to contact us to make sure they have the relevant facts and circumstances behind the potential opinion and what they're seeking a second opinion on. And finally, we generally discuss a variety of matters with the commission, Lisa and Chris specifically throughout the year. Those discussions really occur in the normal course of our professional relationship are not a condition to our retention. In fact, we encourage those discussions so it avoids any surprises or any confusion when we come around to do the audit in April and May, which would be after year end. So we kind of head off any concerns and or questions that might impact our audit as the year happens. I'll move on to the financial statements themselves. This is a rather lengthy document. I will hit the highlights. Pages 1 through 4 are management's discussion and analysis. This really gives the reader an overview of what happened year over year. If you wanted to get a very good summary, the first 4 pages will give you that. We don't form an opinion on the management's discussion and analysis, although it is required under GASB. But we do review it, make sure it is consistent with the financial statements that have been presented. And we do provide any comments if there were some issues that contradict what's in our report. Pages 5 and 6 are our independent auditor's report. This is a unmodified, clean opinion. It is the highest level of assurance that we are allowed to provide under general accepted auditing standards. That's on page 6 here. We also have another report required by government auditing standards, where we consider the commission's internal control over financial reporting, and we conduct tests of compliance. The purpose of that report is to describe the scope of our testing, but it does not provide an opinion on any internal control. Page 7 here is your statement of net position, which is effectively your balance sheet. You'll see all the real big swings here year over year sit on the asset side, sit in your cash and your grants receivable. That's really, as Lisa mentioned in her report, a timing of when the payments are ultimately received. So as of March 31st, there was some grant receivable still out there. As she mentioned, about 671,000 was collected subsequent to year end. And that's really the swing when you look between in your assets there between cash being down and the receivables being up. You also see swings in the OPEB and the pension liability down under long-term liabilities. The big swings there really relate to the discount rate was decreased in both of those plans, and that really does have a large impact on those liabilities year over year. The discount rate comes down, those liabilities go up. There is a schedule in the footnotes that I'll show you briefly that just shows you the significant impact and the fluctuation that discount rate can have on those plans. Page 8 is your statement of revenues, expenses, and change in net position. This is effectively your income statement if you're a for-profit entity. You will see that government grant income is down. You are a cost reimbursement grant. So it's not surprising, as Lisa had mentioned in hers, the spending in the current year was definitely a little bit more conservative just due to COVID and the timing of payments received from the state. It doesn't look like your operating expenses came down, but in reality they did. Your OPEB and your pension expense, along with your depreciation, is all non-cash expenses. So when you pull that out, you do have a decrease in cash operating expenses year over year. You do see you have a large investment return in the current year as well too. That swung the investments up as well. So that was very positive for the year. Page 9 is your statement of cash flows. This is the direct method. It converts your accrual basis statement of net position to really a cash basis presentation. You'll see the big change here is you have a cash used in operating activities. And as I mentioned, that's really a swing in the payments received on your government grant income. As you can see, that is down significantly in the current year. Page 10, this starts note A, which describes the significant accounting policies. All of your required disclosures are here in accordance with US GAAP. The one note that I do want to bring you to, just so you can see on the pension, is this table here on page 20. And this table really describes how sensitive that discount rate is. So as you can see, for the pension plan currently, you're at 6.8. If the discount rate were to go up, that would decrease that liability by over $1 million. If it were to go down, it would almost double that liability. So this really provides the reader more insight on how sensitive that discount rate is and how much that can swing those liabilities in the statement of net position year over year. Page 25 and 26, this is our report on internal control. As I mentioned, performed in accordance with government auditing standards. If we had any internal control deficiencies or financial reporting, they would be required to be disclosed in this report. As well, if we had any compliance issues that are required to be reported under government auditing standards, I'm happy to report that there were no internal control or compliance issues that we were required to report in the current year. And finally, the last report is our examination report, which is required from the compliance with your investment guidelines under the Public Authorities Law. In our opinion, there were, you complied in all material specs with your investment guidelines. The only thing I want to mention about this is just it is a slight change in presentation in the current year. This was kind of buried in your financial statements in prior years and in the government auditing standards report. The senior manager and I on the accounting chair felt that breaking this out into a one-page separate report really makes it much more clear how that you are in compliance. And it's just, in my opinion, just a cleaner presentation. No change in procedures or anything else. It's just a different report in the current year. But like I said, in our opinion, you complied in all material respects. Those are the byproducts of our audit. If there are any questions, I can field those now.
Any questions for Frank? Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Frank.
That's great. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate the overview. And I provided those documents to the board on Monday. So everybody got those prior to the meeting.
Okay.
And I guess before we leave the audit, I'll thank in front of the board both Lisa and Patty for all their work in preparation for this audit. It's a lot of work that happens every year. And I think Frank and the other folks that work with Wojcicki would attest to how organized everything is prior to the audit. So everything is ready to go. And that makes things more efficient. So thank you to Lisa and Patty.
Yes, it definitely does. We certainly appreciate that.
Okay, great. Thanks again, Frank.
You're welcome. I'm having a hard time finding how to stop sharing this here. Can you do that for me? Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy, because I'm sure she did that. Okay.
The next presentation, we'll be hearing from Neil on adaptive management. Neil? Just so you know, Neil, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
How about now, Tony?
Perfect.
Now it works.
All right. I'm going to try and share this slideshow here, so bear with me a sec. From beginning, hopefully the presentation is showing. Chris, do you have the cover slide?
Yep.
I was just saying, Supervisor Barber, thank you for wearing a tie. I was feeling like I wore a Western shirt to a Hawaiian party. But you know, when your little girl gives you a tie to wear, you put it on. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present this morning. As Chris mentioned, Steve, Dylan, and I all three attended the Northeast Natural History Conference and presented at that. And the presentation I have for you this morning is exactly that presentation that I provided at the conference. So the cover slide, you'll see the logo and whatnot from the conference. Also, because it was virtual and very closely timed, there's actually a script for this that I'm going to read. So I'm going to be a little less dynamic probably than I normally am when I give a presentation and I'm bouncing around the room in front of you all. Steve Wright, you can attest to that. And we'll leave it at that. And Patty, you don't need to take notes because I will send you the text. All right, so good morning. My name is Neil Gifford, Conservation Director with the Albany Pine Bush Preserve Commission. 30 years of managing the world's best remaining inland pitch pine scrub oak barrens has taught us much. In this presentation, we'll provide an overview of how that learning refined our understanding of the site's ecosystem dynamics and management needs. My co-authors in this talk are Fire Manager Tyler Briggs, Conservation Biologist Stephen Campbell, and Field Ecologist and Entomologist Amanda Dillon. In this presentation, we will discuss how do we know what the site should be if we have no reference community to guide our work. I'm going to use, it's the only piece of jargon I'm going to really use in this presentation, I think, is reference community. And whenever I talk about a reference community, it's basically, think of it as an exemplary example of a community that has all the parts and all the processes and is kind of perfect. So in this case with Pine Barrens, there is no reference community, and I'll use that term several times. So if we don't have a reference community, what do we use to guide our work? I'll set the context for the site and its significance. We'll talk briefly about how adaptive management is more than a buzzword and how monitoring our work facilitated a paradigm shift in understanding ecosystem dynamics. And we'll finish with a brief consideration of some remaining questions. The Albany Pine Bush is a northeastern interior pine barrens located in the east central part of New York State. It's one of fewer than 20 pine barrens that exist today as an archipelago of rare, fire-dependent habitat islands in a virtual sea of closed canopy forest and human development. The fact that these barrens share many rare plant and animal species strongly suggests much greater connectivity between them in the past. But without a fully functional reference community, how do we know what we want to restore or how to get there? Because we have no reference community, understanding the desired future condition of the system and how to get there requires in part understanding a site's history. So just how old are the barrens in Albany? Pollen, charcoal, and carbon-14 dating of sediment cores from a pine barrens vernal pond in the heart of the preserve reveals that a pine oak dominated system has persisted here for roughly 6,600 years. And this is work of Murphy and Staker from Paul Smith College just last year. These same cores reveal a recurring fire history just as long. And our academic partners are currently working on rebuilding this fire history for us. But that fire history, the fire history revealed in those cores, appears consistent with historical fire frequency of North America. Using fire scarred data, we understand that frequent fire was the norm, not the exception. Not only did they burn, but many areas burned frequently, including the Hudson and Champlain valleys, illustrated here as yellow to orange, suggesting a fire return interval of 10 to 15 years. This history is a good lead on the fire regime needed to maintain quality pine barrens. But how did these fires start? While lightning certainly played an important occasional role, research by Guyette and others strongly suggests that even relatively small, isolated populations of First Nations peoples would be more than sufficient to initiate frequent fire, not only through accidental ignitions, but it appears that intentional indigenous fire was common in the Albany area and across North America. Keep in mind, too, that prior to modern fire suppression, any fire would have burned either until it ran out of fuel or was extinguished by the weather. Finally, consider that this fire paradigm was the probable reality for thousands of years. Modern fire records also reveal abundant fire in Albany, with an average of 2 to 15 fires per year. Between 1929 and 1986, small and large fires being over 100 acres, occurred throughout the year, with most fires burning in the spring dormant season of March, April, and May. Based on this history, managers initially hoped fire would be a heal-all for restoring ecosystem function and rare species habitat in the pine bush. However, there was limited information on the fire effects or the fire regime needed for maximum benefit to the many individual rare species of interest. In addition to historical fire records, we also have historical wildlife information. Those accounts, and indeed the simultaneous long-term persistence of so many habitat specialist species, indicate historically robust populations of many animals that are rare today. The composition of this species-rich wildlife community is therefore itself another strong indication of past habitat conditions, conditions that were in large part the result of the historical fire regime. Unfortunately, 19th and 20th century fire suppression and human development meant that the composition, structure, and function of the pine bush and other pine barrens was seriously degraded. We can get a small taste for that change in this 1950 to 1990 timeline. Fire suppression and development reduced 10,000 contiguous hectares, or about 25,000 acres, of barrens to fewer than 3,000, and resulted in major shifts in plant and animal community composition and structure. By the 1980s, remnant barrens here supported tall, dense thickets of extremely volatile fuels and unstable relic populations of barrens-dependent wildlife like the Karner blue butterfly. As a result of these changes, a 1988 law, New York State law, created the Albany Pine Bush Preserve and an 11-member commission to grow and manage it. To date, 1,370 hectares, or 3,350 acres, are protected. That's the dark green on the map, with goals to protect an additional 800 hectares, or about 1,500 acres. Despite looking like these pictures when the preserve was initiated, it was still considered one of the best remaining global examples of an inland pitch pine scrub oak barrens. It's also the type locality for the endangered Karner blue butterfly and supported remnant populations of many other animals considered at risk by the New York Natural Heritage Program, Nature Serve, and state and federal wildlife agencies and the Nature Conservancy. In 1991, 30 years ago this spring, controlled burning was initiated in the pine bush. These initial fires were exclusively in the spring dormant season from March through May. But these fires could be logistically challenging, like this 1994 prescribed fire. As you can see, after decades of fire suppression, dormant barrens can produce extremely high flame lengths and rates of spread. Lots of smoke and lots of stress for fire managers. These burns also produced limited ecological effects. They did not significantly reduce the litter and duff or expose mineral soil sufficient to trigger pitch pine regeneration or wild blue lupin expansion. Lupin is a sole food plant for the Karner blue. So, we realized that the system was so heavily out of balance that we could not rely on fire alone to safely and effectively achieve our ecological and fuel reduction objectives. This resulted in a major paradigm shift that relies heavily on mechanical and chemical pretreatments to eliminate invasive species and reduce and rearrange dangerous fuels. Much like our own health, the actions required to reset the system after serious decline are quite different from the actions needed to maintain a system that is functioning well. A restoration regime is not a maintenance regime. Applying mechanical, chemical, and fire tools in the right sequence has resulted in logistically manageable fires. In particular, combining mechanical pretreatments with growing season fire resulted in reduced flame lengths and rates of spread, greater fire effectiveness with less intensity, better smoke management, and reduced overall risk. Compare the center picture here of a growing season mow and burn, and that's Amanda Dillon in the middle of that picture, with that earlier dormant season fire image. These combined techniques have also allowed us to expand the burn window from 3 months to 11, increasing the opportunity to apply fire and the annual area burned, which is illustrated here. So here you can see across years, the overall number of acres that we burn each year, and then the different colors represent, the blue is the growing season fire, and the red is dormant season fire. It has also helped us recreate the kind of diverse fire managed landscape that better mimics how fire likely operated in this landscape historically. The colors here illustrate burn years. It has also helped us recreate the kind of what happened there? Sorry, but it's not enough to just make management units black. We have to know if we are achieving ecological objectives for the system and the rare wildlife it supports. Monitoring, in this case, comparing mowing alone to combined mowing and growing season fire, shows us we are simultaneously improving structural diversity, and that's the two graphs on the left. In particular, that upper left, just that you can see the triangles and circles are separated in space, tells us that there's a pretty big effect there from a structural perspective. Well, but we've been able to so while we've improved the structural diversity, we've maintained the plant species composition, and that's that lower right-hand quadrant of the slide where you can see the circles and triangles are much more mixed, meaning there's not a big deal of difference between them. Of particular importance, these combination treatments eliminate litter and duff, exposing mineral soil. And that's huge. That is huge. That is really, really important. Because this has enabled lupin seeding and expansion and pitch pine recruitment. Neither of these were evident following years of dormant season fire. So all I'm saying there is by removing the litter and duff, we're actually able to get out there and get lupin seed into the ground. And that lupin seed then expands, and you can see that in the upper picture. But also in that lower picture, we're finally getting really nice pitch pine recruitment. In some cases, too much. But here, I don't know if you can see all those seedlings, but there's all the seedlings following growing season mowing and burning. Incredible effect. But to understand if this new paradigm is improving ecosystem dynamics, we monitor the distribution, abundance, productivity, and survival of rare and indicator wildlife. These species serve as system-specific surrogates for ecosystem health. Effectively, the wildlife is the best expression of ecosystem health we have. This includes, of course, the endangered cornered blue, whose metapopulation size and structure now far exceeds all state and federal recovery minimums, illustrated with the red arrow on the left-hand side of the slide. Of note, the 2020 population size of 46,100 butterflies in the second brood applies only to 13% of the occupied habitat that we have surveyed in the preserve. The pie charts at the top of the graph illustrate the contribution of different sites or different subpopulations to the overall population. And what I want you to note there is early on, we pretty much had all of our eggs in one basket. Now you can see that increasingly over time, we have additional sites. So we have our eggs are no longer in one basket, they're in many baskets. But one species success is a very limited window on ecosystem health. So we also look at a variety of other wildlife, including other invertebrates. As a result, we know, for example, the preserve supports large populations of many of these groups, including more than 180 species of bees, 53 species of ants, and other moths. Birds are also great ecological indicators or bioindicators. Bird count data, along with breeding season bird banding data, also show improved distribution and abundance of Pine Barrens birds, including many that are declining regionally and nationally, like the eastern whippoorwill, brown thrasher, eastern towhee, field sparrow, kingbird, and prairie warbler. Here we show male density estimates for the 6 best Pine Barrens indicator birds. In particular, as Chris alluded to at the beginning of the meeting, the eastern whippoorwill has returned to the pine bush after about a 30-year absence and began breeding here, we believe, in 2019. In portions of the preserve, we have now transitioned to a maintenance fire regime of relatively frequent, low intensity, moderate severity fire with some surprising results. For example, Maintenance growing season fires burn around the densest patches of lupin, like you can see here, providing refugia or safe places for corner blue butterflies, a species that cannot survive fire at any life stage. These refugia would not exist with dormant season fire. Surprisingly, lupin that did burn resprouts, flowers, and stays green until killing frost, while unburned plants die back in midsummer, about mid-July. This extends the potential time that caterpillars can survive. Lab experiments also show that corner blue butterfly caterpillars fed lupin from plants that resprouted after fire produce more eggs. So maintenance growing season fire can produce a diverse mosaic of both lupin quality and quantity, which can dramatically help stabilize and improve the overall metapopulation function. So after 30 years of management and monitoring, we realized that healthy inland pitch pine scrub oak barrens were not represented by the thickets we inherited. Rather, in its best form, it is much more of a savanna, an open canopied grassy shrubland that can simultaneously support large populations of the rarest wildlife, a landscape that can also be maintained with frequent low intensity, moderate severity wildland fire, a landscape that likely resembles the one maintained through indigenous fire for thousands of years. But while we think we have begun to figure out how to safely and effectively use fire to meet our goals, many questions remain. Questions not only about how to refine the desired results today, but also about the future function of the site in the face of an uncertain climate future. Ecological fire management is really fire effects management, and fire effects vary with season. How will climate change influence our ability to burn when we need to burn to get the desired effect? Will restoring a system capable of supporting a high frequency, low severity fire regime improve the ability to put fire on the ground? Despite climate change, only time will tell. Long-term management and monitoring will help us answer these questions. Lastly, funding for research and management in the Albany Pine Bush Preserve is provided by the New York State Environmental Protection Fund with support of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the USDA Forest Service Wildfire Risk Reduction Grant, and a Northeast Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies Regional Conservation Needs Grant. Thank you. So that's what I had. I presented it that way just so that you would get the full conference experience.
It was very good.
I'm happy to try and entertain any questions if you have any.
On those soil core samples you did dating back to 6,000 years, I think 90 centimeters. Did you go deeper than 90 centimeters, or were you unable to? Or
that's a great question. No, so that was where they hit the hard pan. So that Pine Barrens Mineral Pond that we stopped by on our tour in Conner Barrens East, the sediments are only about 1 meter deep until you hit a hard pan of hard clay. That whole wetland sits on kind of a perched water table. And crazy that in a meter, you're getting almost 7,000 years worth of sediment accumulation.
okay, thanks.
Other questions for Neil?
Well, thank you. Nice to see everyone. Hopefully next quarter we'll be able to see each other in person.
Yes, that would be ideal. Great. Thank you, Neil.
Is there any other or new business? So our next board meeting is September 16th at 9:30. As of now, Chris, are we planning to have that via Zoom or maybe having the potential for some sort of hybrid where some of us can meet in person and others, if they choose, can call in through Zoom, or what are we going to do? Or is it too early to tell, probably?
I guess, I don't know, that my plan is Wendy was going to work with me to help figure out how we can use our smart board so we can have it as a hybrid, so we can have it open, people can attend in person, or if they wish to do so remotely, they can do that too, which I think is probably going to be the norm going forward for probably a lot of things. I guess we'll see also what happens as far as the executive order as it relates to the open meetings law too. Like Supervisor Barber said, I think that expires in early July. I don't know if they'll extend that or not. We'll see. Hopefully they do. The governor's office.
I agree. Hopefully they will. Make life a lot easier.
Yes, the time is now. Like, and I think you can, not that you need my editorial, but I think it encourages greater participation for people who can't drive to a meeting or get there. They can participate remotely via video, and they can ask comments as members of the public. I think that's ideal.
There are childcare issues for a lot of people that might prevent them from attending in person. But they
Sure.
can remotely.
Absolutely. But okay.
All right. Unless anyone has any other business to discuss, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thanks, Elaine.
Second.
That was Brad.
Thank you. Thanks, Brad.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for your time and
All
for
right.
the meeting.